and the word of the Lord came to him. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" May God bless the reading of his word.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you. There's something that happens to me a little bit more often than I would care to admit. It happens to me usually early in the week, Monday or Tuesday, and I meet one of you folks who have been here on Sunday, and you say something to me or mention something about the sermon that I just preached, that I preached the day before, maybe 2 days before, and suddenly I panic because I realize I can't remember. I can't remember the sermon I just preached. And it's not that I just preached it. I spent the whole week before nurturing it and helping it to grow and trying to understand what this verse meant. I spent the whole week before trying to make this sermon memorable, trying to make it inspirational. And here I'm the one who preached it, and I can't even remember it. Now, most of the time, or let me tell you, up until very recently, I would just sort of nod along and kind of try to fake my way through that conversation. And I have to try to get the hints, let my brain go through, try to remember. Maybe there's a word that'll bring it back. And usually it's one word will bring it all back. But recently, I just have gotten to where I admit it, right? I can't remember what I just preached. Let me tell you, this last Monday, that didn't happen. This last Monday, I was sitting down to preach, to get this sermon ready for this week, and the sermon from the day before kept coming back to me. And I thought, there's some unfinished business there. So I looked back at my notes to see what it was that either I wasn't able or I neglected to put in last Sunday's sermon, which was about this great problem of loneliness. We talked about a big survey that just came out the week before that said that half of all the people in the United States experience loneliness either regularly or all the time. Half of the people in the United States. It is a problem that we have to deal with. And we talked about it last week, but there was something left unsaid that I definitely wanted to say. And I looked back in my notes and I found it there. I found one particular comment that said, it was actually about a person who studies loneliness. Someone who makes it his job to know about how to deal with this problem, and he helps people deal with loneliness. And one piece of advice he had, he said, beware. You don't hear that often, right? Beware. He did. He said, beware of the downward spiral of loneliness. That caught my attention. I thought that was an attention-grabbing expression. The downward spiral of loneliness. What did he mean by that? Well, let me tell you how that works. Let's say that you go out and you're feeling a little lonely. You've been experiencing loneliness in your life. And as we said last week, loneliness is sort of like pain. It's a warning signal. With pain, it's to avoid something. With loneliness, it's to try to find something, find some connection to other people. And so you do that. You go out, and maybe you go to a place where you have friends. You go to school, or you go to your work, or some place where you meet people, and you decide, I'm going to put myself out there a little bit more. I'm going to try to make more of a connection. I'm going to try to maybe ask somebody out to lunch. Maybe, try to get to know people better. And you go out and you do that. You make that effort. You you put yourself out there and nothing. You get nothing back. You get no interest from other people in that occasion of wanting to know you better, of wanting to connect with you more. And so what you do is you begin telling yourself, I don't make a very good first impression. That's it. Or I'm just not very good meeting people or getting to know people. And you don't give up. Yeah, you're not going to quit after one time, so you try again. But this time you're carrying with you this idea that you're developing about yourself, that you're not very good at making first impressions. You're not very good at meeting new people. You're not very good at moving from acquaintance to friendship. And so you carry that with you. So the next time you go out, instead of talking to 5 people, you talk to 2. And when you talk to them, you're scanning them for any sign of disinterest, any sign that, they're not really interested in connecting with you. And as soon as you see that sign, you get out of there, right? You disengage with that conversation. If you think, oh, well, they looked over there, they're not interested, I'm going to quit. And then you start maybe telling yourself some other things, like, I'm just not the kind of person who's going to have friends. There's nobody out there in this world that I can connect with. And you make that a part of your belief statement about yourself. And you see, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it is a downward spiral, because the more you believe these things about yourself, the more lonely you become. The next time you go out, or maybe on down the road somewhere, this happens, and the downward spiral goes down, and the next time you're out with people, you just make sure you're always looking at your smartphone. Or you may sit there and you read a book, or you sit in a place where it's hard to get to you. You make it clear to everybody else you're not interested in connecting. And if somebody makes it and penetrates through that bubble that you put around yourself, well, they're not going to like you, because you're sure of that about yourself. You're just not the kind of person to connect with somebody else. And so you're cold, and you're a little distant, because it's just a matter of time until they reject you. And so that goes nowhere. See, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is the downward spiral of loneliness. Like, again, the expression, the idea of it, I understood that. I've been in times in my life where I've experienced that. Maybe you have too. This kind of downward spiral where what you do is making the problem worse and worse. And it could be because of loneliness. It could be many other problems in your life that cause you into a downward spiral. And I was thinking about this, thinking, well, gosh, who could it be? Is there somebody in the Bible who relates to this? And right away I thought of Elijah. We talked about Elijah not that long ago. Elijah and Elisha. Do you remember the fact, perhaps, that Elijah was more zealous? He even mentions that here in this reading. Man, I am zealous for God. I am connected to God. I feel confident in my faith. And even with all of that, even though he is more connected to God, perhaps, than any other of the prophets, we hear him here today saying, I still feel lonely. We're reminded that just because we feel connected to God doesn't mean we feel connected to other people. So why do we emphasize that so much, this connection to God? Well, Elijah felt it, certainly. And in fact, in this moment that we hear him, he's in a cave, he's out in the wilderness. He's run away. Because he's experienced this downward spiral of defeat in his life. And finally, you heard him, I'm all alone. I'm all alone, God. And he was saying, I'm all alone, but I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I've done everything that you told me to do. I've done everything that everybody else tells me to do. I've gone out there, I've preached, I've tried to connect with people, I've tried to get followers and students. I have tried my best, and it's been one defeat after another. And it's affected me. It's affected the way I act toward other people. And so here I am. I decided to leave it all behind. I left Judea. I left the place where I'm supposed to be doing my work. I left the people. I traveled in the wilderness for 40 days to get to this cave to talk to you. Why did he go there? Well, he was actually up on that Mount Horeb. It was the place where Moses had received the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments, the law, the things that had bound the people together, the thing that Moses had brought down and had made possible their nation and the rest of their journey. And that's what Elijah was looking for. He was looking for a miracle. He was looking for something big, some symbol, something he could take back to the people. And he could say, this is it. And they would all say yes, and they would rally around him. And he would be able to be victorious. And in this one great moment, God would take care of everything. That's what he wanted. He wanted this miracle that would absolutely defeat the loneliness, the apartness that he was feeling. And God said, all right, you're on a miracle. I can do that. That's my specialty. I provide miracles, and I've certainly made it possible for you, Elijah, to do lots of miracles. So asking for a miracle, there is nothing wrong with that. But let me show you, God said. Let me show you how this kind of a miracle happens. This kind of a miracle of overcoming being isolated. He said, go outside the cave. I'm about to pass by. And so Elijah went outside the cave, and he stood there on the mountainside. And here came a mighty wind. It's a great symbol for God's presence. A mighty wind. It was so mighty it cracked the stones. It broke the mountain. But that wasn't the miracle. God wasn't in the wind. And so a great earthquake came and shook the ground, and there was rocks tumbling down the mountain, and it was a wonderful, big thing, but that wasn't the miracle. God wasn't in the earthquake. And then the pillar of fire came. Now surely that has to be God, because that's the way God came to Moses, right here on this mountain. Surely that's it. That's the miracle I want. But no, God wasn't in the fire. And then it came, in one translation of the Bible puts it in this beautiful way that may be familiar to you. It says, finally Elijah heard it, God's presence. And it was in the still, small voice of God. The still, small voice of God. You know, Elijah never really seems to have gotten it, but what God, it seems to us, is saying there is sometimes you need a big miracle in your life. Sometimes you're experiencing a downward spiral. Well, it's not some grand miracle that's going to get you out. Yes, God's going to provide you a miracle, but it's going to be something small. In a series of little miracles. And when it comes to loneliness, little miracles of connection. And what it's like is instead of a downward spiral, these little miracles of connection are an upward draft. An upward draft. It doesn't take you all the way out of your loneliness immediately, but it begins to stop that downward progression, and then slowly it begins to lift you up. Lift you up. I thought about this. I thought about when I was this idea of an upward draft. I looked up the record for gliding in a glider. How long had somebody stayed up in a glider? And it was 72 hours. 72 hours. The only way you can do that is with the updrafts, right? It happened in Hawaii. Amazingly, it happened like 56 years ago. Nobody's broken the record in 56 years of staying up there in the air, catching one updraft after another. And here's exactly what God is offering us. All of us, not one grand miracle of healing necessarily, but one small experience after another, lifting us out of this loneliness we are feeling, stopping this downward spiral that we can experience. It's a wonderful promise to us. That even when we find ourselves like Elijah, hiding away in the cave, we can find this. And you know, it's exactly what happened for Jesus. We never hear about Jesus feeling lonely, but when he came out of his 40 days in the wilderness, he did not find there 100 disciples waiting for him and 12 apostles all set to go. He had nobody. Jesus starts out all by himself. And then he goes and finds his followers, his disciples, the apostles, one person at a time, one connection at a time. And that's what the prescription that God gave to Elijah. He said, Elijah, go out. And he said, I got some good news and some bad news. He didn't say that, but he did. He had some good news and some bad news for Elijah. The bad news was, Elijah, you know how you were complaining about all those things you have already done and you've tried it all? Keep at that. You got to keep doing that. That's the way it's going to get done. He said, but I do have some good news. I'm going to direct you to somebody. I'm going to direct you to somebody I think you're going to like. I think you guys are going to connect together. And you'll like him because his name's really similar to yours. It's going to confuse a lot of people in the future. You'll love that. His name's Elisha. So there's Elijah. Go find Elisha. And we hear about Elijah and Elisha all the time, student and a teacher. And that's the moment where he's directed to. They're at that lowest moment. Go and make that one connection. He does. He makes that connection, and then another and another. Finally, I think at the end, he has not just Elisha going with him at the end of his life, he's got 50 other close disciples with him, and lots more behind them. The problem of loneliness becomes the least of Elijah's worries. So that's the way we've got to think about miracles in our lives in general. I mean, the way we can think about it. One little miracle at a time, and certainly when it comes to loneliness, one connection at a time. And where do we start? We start where we already have connections. That's what Elijah did. God didn't say, go to Babylon. You know, we tried the Israelites, go to Babylon, go to Macedonia, go to Syria. God said, go back to where you already have some connections. Go back and find this guy, Elisha, who's already heard about you. And that's what we're called to do too. We need connections in our lives. We start in the places we know, at the schools that we attend, the workplaces where we work, here at the church and in the organizations we belong to. I heard a great story by a guy who said, that he was lonely. And that this was a problem he was having. And so he decided that he had this bridge group he would go to, but he didn't really have any friends there. But he liked playing bridge, so he'd been there quite a few times. And he said, I'm going to go to this bridge group, and this time, everybody I try to talk to everybody. And everybody that I talk to, and I love this, the way he put this. He said, I'm going to try to say 2 pleasant things to them. 2 pleasant things. Then that is a very low bar, he said himself. Just not to say, you don't have to say inspirational things. You don't have to say encouraging things. You don't have to say friendly things. Just to say 2 pleasant things to each person. And he reported, wow, what results from that? What amazing results from that one little change I made in my life. Just 2 pleasant things to each of these people. And all of a sudden, these acquaintances, many of them were becoming friends. All from that little effort. Just these miracles of connection occurring. Let me tell you, if you are lonely, if that is an issue in your life, then know this. First of all, start out with this connection to God. Know that you are of value, that God loves you, that you are special, that God created you just the way that you are. And yes, so you are of value to other people. God created you to be in community. So if you're not feeling they're out there right now, never lose hope. And never think less of yourself than you should. That's the reason for that downward spiral. It's just believing these false things about yourself, undervaluing yourself. Start with your relationship with God, and you won't allow that to happen. You're always going to have hope for the future. You're never going to say, not only am I not happy now, or am I not lonely now, I'll always be lonely. That'll never happen. Because you'll know something about yourself that isn't a lie, it is true. That you are special and God loves you. And there are others out there who need to connect with you, and who want to connect with you. You'll never lose that hope in the future, that even if you're experiencing loneliness, it's just temporary. You can overcome it. My last word is to those who aren't lonely. Because according to the survey, half of us aren't. It's not a problem that we have. We're never lonely. We don't think about loneliness. In fact, some of us might say, I've got so many friends, I'm not really looking for any new friends right now. I'm not really looking to connect with anyone right at this moment. Let me tell you, you have a gift if you aren't lonely. There is something about you that makes this your gift to connect with other people. And maybe it's because you're outgoing. Or maybe it's because you're funny. Or maybe it's because you're not outgoing, not funny, but you're empathetic. And you know how people feel, and you can make connections with them because of that. That is your gift. Use that gift. Use it to connect with people, to be friendly toward them. There are going to be so many people out there. Maybe in this week ahead, you're going to meet somebody who's looking for that.